So that's interactive whiteboards. Blogs and wikis. You familiar with that notion? Yeah. That's a very useful way, I find. So when I have my master's courses, one of the things I do after each session, I sit down for, well, sometimes 15 minutes, often an hour, to just provide a summary of what I've done. So any PowerPoint presentations I've used, I save them out onto SlideShare and then embed them, so the student has a record of what happened. And in class, I don't have to really worry too much about them all constantly taking all the important stuff down, because I know and they know it's there later on. And what they should really focus on is what's particularly relevant for them. And then another thing that's not here, but that relates to interactive whiteboards, is visualizers. Have you ever come across visualizers? Those of you teaching biology or some such
We've seen these in video clips from teachers.
Yeah, somebody's mentioned overhead projectors, and it's basically a device that allows you, with a camera on top, to capture something in a local surface and display it in a big way, so even you sitting at the back would be able to see very easily what I'm doing here on the surface. So I can use that building up writing, or I can use real objects and display them like that. So what are we getting from this? Visualization, representation is quite important. So I can do things here as a teacher, retain relative control of what's going on, by that I mean see what's happening, and yet I can be sure that all of you can partake in the activity, even if it's quite few. So, and there is lots of lovely websites that really allow us to visualize material. Have you come across Wordle, for example? No? That's a website where you can put in, I did that once in a book I recently written. I wrote a chapter on assessment, e-assessment. And then I thought, well, how can we bring the e-bit in? And I thought, okay, I'll run this chapter, entire chapter through Wordle, and then Wordle output for me a graphic with all the keywords in the relative size of occurrence and importance in the text. Yeah? So rather than writing an abstract for this chapter, what I did is I stuck in this image and say, this is what this chapter is all about. Yeah? These are the important words. So there is loads of tools like that. Another one I quite like is called Wall Wisher. I'll come back to it in a second, but otherwise I forget this. Have you heard of Wall Wisher? That's a website which allows you over the internet or over the mobile phone for students to text in responses to questions, and it gets automatically displayed on the website. Yeah? So as we talk here, if we had that set up, you could text me to a particular number your thoughts or your answers to the questions, and as I'm speaking they appear behind me on the screen, and that's another sort of way of representing and bringing things in. But you wanted to say something, Angela?
Like in Microsoft Word, if you just there's an option
Yeah.
where you can get the summary of the text that
Yeah.
you've done.
Yeah, but that's more summary of the text rather than a
This is
visual.
controlled by you.
Yeah. Did you want to? No. Okay. Yeah. You want to say?
It's like
yeah.
a mind map that like to create.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Mind mapping, of course. Do any of you use mind mapping?
Yes.
I quite like it, and what I like is that increasingly you get apps on your phone as well that allow you to add things here. When I go to conferences, I'm surprised how many people actually on their laptops don't take notes by pen. And when they take notes on their laptops, it's actually not writing in Word, but it's creating mind maps and using mind mapping software. So it's interesting to see how these tools allow us to represent knowledge in much more dynamic and interesting ways, much more the way sort of we think about it, rather than technologies tell us to. And one of the critiques, since we're asked to do this, talk about it, that I have of technology is that very often, and I was sort of expecting one of you to say that, as educationists, We are basically asked to make do with technology that's been invented for completely different purposes. Where does Microsoft Word, where does Excel spreadsheet come from? Business, productivity paradigm. Yeah? Let's do things more quickly and more effectively and all of that. Is that necessarily good for learning? It can be. Yeah, it can be very good. But as we've seen, it's also got limitations, and we mustn't forget that we need to supplement it and augment it with other sorts of tools. Concordancy is not that important unless you're a language specialist. But I said this is what I use. So any idea what concordancy is? The same principle. You run a text through a concordancy program, and it will show you a list of occurrence of a particular word you mean in the entire corpus. So Birmingham University, the co-built dictionary of English, if some of you have come across that, was actually put together on this principle. They were looking at language in use, in real use. Okay? Could be my corpus is the entire collected works of Shakespeare, yeah? And I have a look at what happens then. It shows me 3 or 4 words before, 3 or words after, and then I can, those of you who are language specialists, you can, and who are interested in an inductive rather than a deductive approach to language teaching, you can start to engage the learners and say, what pattern are we seeing here? What's happening? Can you formulate a rule around this? Can we now hypothesize and can we test out these rules? So in that sense, the technologies allow us to do the sorts of things that you mentioned around engagement, around flexibility.
Excuse me, is that
Yeah.
software?
Yes, and there are some free of charge things. Again, if you go to Delicious, to my account, look for the concordancy tab, then I'm sure you'll find some links, yeah? Yeah?
So can this be enlarged a little bit?
I don't think so. I think it's to do with the distance between the table and with all the cables, I fear we create havoc here. Instant messaging. Yeah, do any of you use that?
It's a holiday today, don't come to school.
Okay, so and it's quite good also to communicate with parents.
But these emergency situations in Pakistan, we often have to close the school without prior information.
Yeah.
So it helps a lot because children coming to school and then knowing it's closed, it's not helpful.
Yeah. What about instant messages amongst pupils?
Yeah. Reminding homework, do it.
Yeah. Okay. Video and photo sharing, social bookmarking, as I mentioned. VLEs. Do your school, does Beaconhouse offer a VLE, a virtual learning environment?
Yes, we have it.
Yeah. So what sort of thing do you do then?
It's not fully functional, but since the security situation and the turbulence in Pakistan, we have built up this, they are uploading certain information on the internet, the typical website. Where if you miss the school, you can log on to there and pick up the
Children had started doing their homework during those
as well.
They were given assignments through internet.
Yes.
They were doing it and sending them back.
Yeah.
Very small children, even they were doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Did you want to?
It's the same what she said.
Yeah. So useful repository again for bringing in material from different sources. You making material available, but good VLEs obviously have all sorts of other functionality. They have blogs, they have RSS feeds.
Right now, we don't have space, but we have a vision. We started working on it. Like somebody mentioned there. We have the data, but some for middle school science teachers, there's one in progress. They're trying to build one with blogs and the data where they can all the teachers can share.
But being able to upload digital artifacts of all sorts for pupils to work with is again a useful way of stopping them wasting loads of time being on the internet as such, but being on a relatively safe place and a place that you've prepared for them pedagogically as well. So that's quite useful. Then there's a whole range of social networking tools, Twitter, microblogging tools, computer-assisted language learning. There's one particular type of resource, authoring tools. what's it called? Hot potatoes. Anybody heard of hot potatoes? Yeah?
I've worked over it and I've tried in my classes.
Yeah? So what does hot potatoes do?
It helped me in preparing assignments on the software.
Yes.
That hot potatoes.
Yeah.
And I enter the data, what's the right
Yeah.
answer with some of the keywords,
Yes.
with multiple
Yeah.
questions.
So if you want to develop interactive activities,
And it's more convenient.
you can download the software. You don't need to know anything about programming. It's got templates built in, different types of activities. Okay, you can say it's limited, but there's 5 or 6, and you can enter the questions, enter the answers, and it will generate multiple choice questions, and it generate all sorts of interesting things. Is the software, you can download it free of charge. It's somewhere in Canada, and it's available both for the Mac and for the PC. But that's what I mean by that. Yeah, authoring tools that allow you, and not just you, and I think that's a point that's often missed. Also my students, I encourage them to make activities for each other and say, this is the task, this is the text, these are the important bits. Now try and create an exercise and an activity for one of your peers. This is quite helpful. Digital audio and video material, video and audio, conferencing, podcasting and broadcasting. Any of you done podcasting?
Yes.
Yeah? And that also can be quite good, particularly if you have a situation of a widely dispersed catchment area, or if it's very good, I find, to download all these things through an RSS feed. I personally use iTunes and then carry it around in a device like this. And it allows me to catch, when I've got 5 minutes on the bus going into work, and I'm able to just look at that, and that's quite helpful.
Sorry, hold on a second. Before you move
Yes?
on, I didn't understand the use of instant messaging.
You didn't understand the
applicable
use
to
of instant
SMS.
messaging. Okay, well,
The teaching in particular, I mean, I understand that you can inform them about strikes and some disturbances, but how is that applicable to academics?
okay, I can answer it for me, but we've got experience in the room. Yeah? There was a couple of people who said that they're doing it. Do you want to say anything, or do you?